Good morning, Commissioners. District 1, Commissioner Shernock. District 2, Commissioner Hampton. District 3, Commissioner Herbert.
Present.
District 4, Commissioner Forsyth.
Here.
District 5, Chair Shadid.
Present.
District 6, Commissioner Carpenter.
Present.
District 7, Commissioner Wheeler Reagan.
Here.
District 8, Commissioner Franklin.
Present.
District 9, Commissioner Sleeper. District 10, Commissioner Housewright. District 11, Commissioner Nightingale.
Present.
District 12, Commissioner Hogg. District 13, Commissioner Hall.
Here.
District 14, Commissioner Kingston.
Here and feeling feisty.
And place 15, Commissioner Rubin, Vice Chair Rubin. You have quorum, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Commissioners. Today is Thursday, February 6, 2025, 9:11 a.m. Starting a little bit late today. A couple of quick announcements before we get started. There is a planned internet outage at 8 p.m. So we must be done before then. So I know, yeah, I thought that would be the reaction, that we have a hard stop at 8, so we will be done before then. So Commissioners, just please keep that in mind when the hearing begins, that we do need to keep going. There's lots of zoning cases, and I think many are coming off consent. So we'll have to keep a good pace. Secondly, there may be a power outage at 6 p.m. So we're trying to figure that out to see if that's going to affect us, and if we in fact have to be gone before then. We don't know yet, so keep that in mind. And then also, we are going to be moving some cases around. We do have lots of moving parts. Some commissioners have limited availability, so we'll be moving some cases up, maybe some back, including the Pepper Square case that we will be moving it up in the hearing. So anyone interested in being heard on that case, please make sure that you're ready to go. And with that, Commissioners, Vice Chair Rubin will be virtual today, so I've asked Commissioner Franklin to serve as Vice Chair today, so I need a motion for that.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Carpenter, for your motion, and Commissioner Housewright for your second. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Commissioners, so at this point, we are going to do briefing per request, and let me just kind of go through the cases that have come off consent. See, 234, 336. Do you know what number this is? Do you know what number this one is? Let's see. 336. Okay, number 3. Okay. So it's 2, 4, 16, 18, 22, 23. Okay, Commissioners, so at this point we have cases 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 11, 16, 17, 18, 19, 22, and 23 coming off consent. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 11, 16, 17, 18, 19, 22, and 23. Some of those are being pulled off consent to make adjustments, and others to be held under advisement. I know mine is on number 17, so when we get to it, it's going to be held on March 6th. So any others that we know at this point? Yes. Commissioner Hampton?
Thank you. Item 5, Z234353 will also be individual.
I'm sorry, which one was that?
Item 5.
Okay, thank you. Number 5. Number 5.
And can we add item 20 as
20,
well?
okay. 20. So one more time, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 11, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23.
13 also, sorry.
13 off. So 13. Okay, so that, okay, so the consent agenda,
24, we had speakers registered to speak in opposition.
okay, so that comes off. So the consent agenda, unless I'm mistaken, consists of cases 6, 7, 10, 12, 14, 15, and 21. Does anybody need any of those off? 6, 7, 10, 12, 14, 15, 21. What's that? Those, one came off, yes. We have a conflict on number 1. Let's see here. Any other changes of those cases, Commissioners? 6, 7, 10, 12, 14, 15, 21? Okay, so,
Mr. Chair,
yes, Commissioner Hall?
I don't anticipate anyone showing up for case 21, but if they do, we can take it off consent.
Okay, perfect.
We won't know until they get here, I guess.
Okay, we can do that. So until the hearing, we have those 7 cases still on consent. So we will begin with case number 1. Commissioner Herbert has a conflict on that case, but it is going to be held under advisement. So we won't brief that one today, but when we get to the hearing, Commissioner Herbert will step off for the moment until we have that motion made. Number 2. Do we need that briefed?
Yes, we need that one brief.
Okay, let's have that one briefed.
Morning, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Good morning.
Can you see that, Chairman? Oh, there. How about now? Can everyone see that?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commission. It's case Z234-334, located over on Simpson Stewart. It's a request for a specific use permit for the sale of alcoholic beverages in conjunction with a general merchandise or food store. It's a convenience store greater than 3,500 square feet. It's on the southeast corner of Simpson Stewart Road and Bonneview Road. It's about a little under an acre. Some zoning conditions for you. It's in the community retail district. That's the CR district. It does have a D1 liquor control overlay. There was a previous SUP on the site that is expired. I can see its location there. Again, sort of at that east hard corner. Simpson Stewart and Bonnie, and then taking a look at surrounding zoning conditions, there's a similar use to the north, also zone CR, some miscellaneous retail uses to the east, CR as well, and then a multifamily property to the south. I can take a look at the site here, multi-tenant building. Taking a look under the gas canopy, back at the site. Taking a look at the proposed site plan. See that the note A, specific use permit area, called out right there. With that, staff's recommendation is approval for a 5-year period subject to site planning conditions.
Thank you, sir.
Answer any questions.
Questions? Commissioner Franklin?
Yes, thank you for that quick presentation. I do have several questions. Can you remind us why the SUP originally expired without being renewed?
Sure. I believe it was just not gone through it had not gone through the renewal process in time. There's a application timeline there to start processing that renewal. It's my understanding that that application was failed to be made.
And I see as a part of the case plan, you've notified the areas, or the people who need to be notified around you. Did you notify everyone?
Yes, that should have been the case. The notice is going out per the list that's produced through our GIS and processing.
I noticed that 3460 was omitted from that list. Is there any reason why?
I'm not too sure why that would be the case, Commissioner, if they are within that radius there, which is provided on page 2-14, looks like, of the case report.
And do we have any crime stats for that area?
I do not believe any, as this was a new SUP, Commissioner, I might have failed to produce those crime stats within the report. We typically do those for renewals, but it does not look like they were included in the report.
Can you please send that over to us? 'Cause I'm very familiar with that corner there. And just from a historical standpoint, there's been several assaults and murders in that little intersection, and some of the violence have been at that particular spot. So I'm just wondering, has there been any abatement or anything that's gone on over the last year or so to make that a non-concern?
Sure, I think there are a couple points to that. I think that's a good question for the applicant, perhaps later this afternoon. They should be present. And as far as the crime statistics, I can work with our contact at PD to get those. Those are sort of produced across departments. So it might take a little bit of time, but just to let you know.
And just one more question, just because I'm new. Is there supposed to be, what is the barrier requirements between a building that's serving alcohol and residences, whether it's single family and multifamily?
It's typically a spacing requirement for churches, and I believe it's daycares. I'm not too sure. I might have to lean on another member of staff if they're there in regards to spacing from residential properties.
Hey, good morning. Yes, there's not anything specific in code. As he said, the chapter 6 of our code says you have to have space in between alcoholic beverage establishments and various institutional uses. There's not, in that chapter, there's not anything built in about residences. Then the only reason we have an SUP here is not because of any proximity in the zoning code, it's because of the overlay that's on there. So it's at the discretion of decision makers, the city council, to decide if it's close or too far, not close, not close enough for an SUP to be granted. So there's not any specific buffer.
Do you know how far, and right behind that building, there's several apartment complexes in that area. Do you know how close, I'm trying to think of the name of them, but we refer to them as the Grays in that area. But what is the proximity between that building and the nearest apartment complex?
I do not know that off the top of my head, Commissioner. I would have to do a little bit of digging on that.
Okay. No further questions from me at this time.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Carpenter.
So while this has been considered a new SUP, the use has been operating there since 2011. Is that correct? It got renewed in 2011, presumably for a 5-year period?
That's my understanding of the latest renewal, yes, Commissioner.
Okay, so they've been operating without an SUP for the last 9 years?
The business, the retail use would be permitted by right, is my understanding in the CR district, Commissioner. So the SUP would be for the alcoholic sales.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Franklin, second round.
I do have an additional question. Do you know whether the owners have a trespass affidavit at that location?
I'm unaware, Commissioner. That's probably a good question for the applicant later this afternoon. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Hampton?
thank you. Mr. Connor, two follow-up questions. And I heard you mention that the SUP has been expired. Are you aware if they were selling alcohol with the expired SUP?
I'm not aware of that. Typically, when we do our site visits, it's usually to the exterior, things of that nature. So it's not something that I particularly inspected inside the establishment.
And I think I also saw that they have a C-store. Are they current on their license for that?
That should be the case. We typically require those as part of the application, and I don't recall anything being flagged for that. It's probably something we can also ask the applicant later this afternoon.
Okay, I didn't see it mentioned, and we usually have that included in our report. With the residential adjacency that Commissioner Franklin was asking about, were there any prior conditions, or did staff give any consideration to either screening or enhanced buffering between the use and the adjacent residential?
That's a good question. To my understanding, that was not a condition of the initial approval, at least not through my review that I saw in the listed SUP conditions. I do believe the applicant was seeking to reinstate the previous conditions as part of this, not renewal, but this new application for new SUP.
So when you reviewed it, that wasn't anything you thought should be considered?
No, ma'am. No, Commissioner.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, commissioners? Okay, let's keep going. Case number 3, Commissioner Nightingale has a conflict, but she'll only step out if we need it briefed. Would anyone like that one briefed? Yes? Okay, Commissioner Carpenter. Commissioner Nightingale is stepping out of the chamber. So I have number 3 briefed.
Alrighty. This is KC 234-336, located at 1519 Main. The request is an application for specific use permit for commercial amusement inside. It's located at the north line of Main Street, east of Ackerd. That's about a 2,500 square foot area. There's some zoning conditions for you. There are quite a few. Subdistricts A, B, and C within Plan Development 619. There's a pedestrian overlay, a few demolition overlays, as is common within that area. There is also a portion of an additional SUP on the site that allows for the overhead attached projecting a non-premise district activity video board sign, not spare any words. I can see its location there, located in Main Street. Again, looking at surrounding uses, pretty commensurate with what you would expect down on Main. Mix of multi-story miscellaneous retail, hotel, multifamily restaurants, that type of thing. Taking a look at the site, looking west down Main and then at the unit, and then looking back up Main Street. Taking a look at the site plan, 2,500 square foot building. Staff's recommendation is approval for a 5-year period with eligibility for automatic renewals for additional 5-year periods, and that's, of course, subject to conditions and a site plan.
Thank you, sir. Questions, Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes, my concern is for the staff recommendation for 5 and 5 when this is a new SUP and when the SUP is very broad. It just says the only use authorized is a commercial amusement inside, so it could be any type of commercial amusement. Can you give some explanation as to why for an unspecified commercial amusement, the recommendation is 5 and 5?
Can I jump in really quick?
Sure.
I will say, so when we don't specify the commercial amusement, it's not read as that we're authorizing the more specified commercial amusements. We have dance halls are one of the specified uses. Amusement centers are one of those. If we're not specifying them, we don't read it as that we're authorizing, and that we would need to specify if we wanted to authorize dance hall, one of those uses. What they're proposing is event space, and event space is one of the unspecified ones, so we have to default to the base commercial amusement if we want to authorize it.
So are you saying this could only be one of the unspecified commercial amusement inside?
That's, yes.
Okay, are there other unspecified commercial amusement insides other than event space?
I don't know if we would say that that applies. I mean, it's kind of on a, these uses are kind of, you get interpretations on them, because they're sort of amorphous in nature when they get down to review. So the commercial amusement covers you for certain things. Event space is definitely one of them, but because the code offers further definition on amusement center, on dance hall.
Bingo.
Bingo, yeah, exactly. Because it doesn't specify those, we're not authorizing those definitions, but there's not a definition for anything more specific or concrete than event space. And so we read it as authorizing event space and also anything else that falls close to the basic definition of commercial amusement without the deeper definitions.
Then, given that the assumption is this is going to be an event center, and I confirmed with Mr. Baldwin that that was the intention, was it not considered appropriate to put conditions about hours of operation or prohibitions on outside music, things that we customarily do for event centers?
I think in a downtown environment, staff was not particularly concerned about that.
Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? Okay. We'll go to number 4.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes. We need a brief?
Yeah, yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all right, let's do number 4.
Very good. Okay. Item 4 is case Z234-349, located on Riley Crest. It's a request for the amendment renewal of specific use permit number 2115 for an office showroom warehouse. That's on the north line of Riley Crest Drive, east of St. Augustine. It's about 0.82 acres of the site. It's within Subdistrict 3 of PD 535. That's the CF Han Special Purpose District. There is a D1 liquor control overlay as well. I can see its location there. It's about a property off of CF Han. In there, as far as zoning map surrounding uses, typical vehicle outside storage, miscellaneous light industrial uses along CF Han, and then R75 single family developed neighborhood to the south across Riley Crest. Taking a look at the site, looking north off Riley Crest, see that perimeter fencing back to the site entrance, back at the unit. It's a proposed site plan. There are no changes from the current SUP. And with that, staff's recommendation is approval for a 5-year period with eligibility for automatic renewals for additional 10-year periods subject to amended conditions.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Franklin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's a residential neighborhood to the south of that building. During the last 5-year period, were there any complaints from the residents, traffic, noise, whatever it may be?
I'm unaware of any complaints, Commissioner.
Have they reached out to the community regarding this renewal?
That's another good question. I'm uncertain. I think that'd probably be best answered by the applicant later this afternoon.
Okay, well, I'll reserve all my questions for the applicant.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, let's go to number 5. We need number 5 briefed.
I just had a question.
Please.
And if others do, we're certainly happy to have a brief. But Mr. Roberts, thank you for including the crime stats. I think when I've seen those come through in the past in our case reports, there's usually a date, a time, address, other information that helps give some more context to what we're looking at. So I'm really not clear what those crime stats were generated from. Could you help explain that?
Sure. And Commissioner Hampton, thank you for bringing that up. I know you and I discussed a little bit over the past week. That's probably something that I need to make sure I'm asking properly on my cases. So typically what we do is we ask our folks over in PD to provide crime stats. Usually we'll ask for the time period in reverse. So whether it's a 4-year or 5-year period in reverse from the date to get sort of or since the previous SUP was renewed, to something to that effect. So that's what I understand the number to be that was provided in that Excel file. And if there's more information, I'll work to make sure that we're providing that ahead of time better in the future.
So the information that you got though, and again, I see crime stats with my neighborhood association, various bodies that I'm involved with. I've never seen one that doesn't have all that information. So did it just not come through to you?
No, it does. It comes in a big, just a little peek behind the curtain, comes in a big Excel file. And so usually what we've done is I've taken a look at a previous report and grabbed sort of that formatting. So it might just be a lingering issue of not grabbing all the information that the commission is looking for. So that's certainly something that we can assist in correcting as we move forward.
Okay, well, I'm happy, I'll send you a screenshot. I went and pulled the prior SUP renewal just as a reference point, and I'll send you what those crime stats indicated. And one more just for clarification, there's no change to the SUP conditions, the areas, what's being utilized by the business that are requested. And the SUP area specific to the bar or restaurant, we call it the dance floor area, but the larger area, they have a full rooftop that is unchanged from the original request. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's my understanding.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item? 6, 7. Okay, let's go to 6. We'll need 6 briefed. Okay, at this point, that will be the first case on consent. 7, still on consent. Anybody request a briefing? Okay, we'll go to 8. That one came off consent. Commissioner Wheeler. Okay.
But I don't know if she had deeper questions.
Okay, so that one, number 8, I think is just a matter of just changing the time period for the SUP. So any questions on that one, number 8? Okay, takes us to number 9. And number 9, let's see here. Number 9 is going to get held.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And let's see here. It's going to be held to March 6th, is that right?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so we'll brief it then. Takes us to 10. 10 does need to be brief because staff is going to it's going to have some adjustments to the language. So if we have a motion for approval, it will be per staff. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Per briefing. Good morning.
So this is the Golden Rule Charter School, and just before I, make you dizzy with slides, do you want me to go through the slides, or do you want me to just brief the change?
Please, just a change.
Just the change, okay. Let me see if I can share. Okay. Okay, so this is item 10, Z234351. It's an application for the amendment and renewal of SUP 1450 for an open enrollment charter school on property zoned R75A. It's on the southwest corner of West Illinois and Chalmers Street, on the south line of Baker Street, and on the north line of Ingle Avenue. It has a few frontages, and it's kind of an oddly shaped parcel, but the change is that we need to, let's see if that's on the next slide. We need to, this item right here, item 5, classrooms, oh boy. Since it's a charter school, the state changed the regulations back in 2023 and said cities can't regulate charter schools any differently than we would regulate public schools. And so since we wouldn't limit the number of classrooms or a cap on enrollment for, the ISDs we have, we also cannot limit the number of classrooms for charter schools. So the only change is that we need to take out the classroom cap on this one.
Perfect. Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Carpenter?
I have a question about the staff recommendation for a 5-year renewal and 5-year auto renewal. I remember back in 2020, 2021, I don't know who was here then, this was a school we had tremendous traffic management issues. And while I understand that they have improved, there's also construction and new buildings going up. Can you explain why the 5 and 5 was considered to be appropriate?
I'm not aware of new buildings going up any more than what's on their, the previously approved plans. Right, there's no. This is also Lori's case, and she's having car trouble, so I'm filling in.
I can ask
but-
Mr. Navarez this afternoon at the
Sure,
briefing.
sure, we
Okay.
can do that. But
I'll do that.
I would say on the time limit, also to be compliant with the state regulations, we're trying to provide some relief to public schools, and therefore now must be charter schools as well. And so since they were just basically asking for a renewal, and then we were just doing some cleanup of the SUP conditions. They have some pedestrian amenities that they agreed to add upon an activity of redevelopment or an addition. So since they expressed a willingness to, improve the pedestrian facilities of the site whenever they start to reinvest in the property, in additions, then we were, just like we would for a DISD school, we would recommend some form of automatic renewals.
All right, thank you very much.
Any other questions? Commissioner Hampton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I was trying to toggle between case reports, so I don't have a number to reference, and I was trying to cross-check. Is it correct, Ms. May, that we typically, historically, public schools have been via PD versus SUP? We're starting to transition into SUPs now. We do sometimes include the classroom number. Are those regularly included within the TMP, the traffic management plans? Because it's how we think about circulation, scale, volume.
Yes, that's a great point. We do typically talk about the classroom size and how that affects traffic and things like that within the TMP exhibit, but not typically in the SUP conditions. So,
Okay, so
That's-
since I don't have it up and I
Okay.
believe it was there, the TMP is still referenced as a part of the SUP conditions. Is that correct?
that is correct, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions on this item? We'll keep going. Takes us to number 11. No briefing? Oh, we're holding number 11 to what date? Okay. Perfect, thank you. 2:20. So we'll brief it then?
Yes, because we're waiting a community meeting.
Thank you. So we'll hold number 11, takes us to number 12, which I think is still on consent. We'll keep it on consent. We'll brief, takes us to 13. No? Okay, 13.
changing the time period. We don't need to brief it.
Okay, so no briefing on 13 unless we have a request. Okay, 14. 14 is staying on consent? Yeah, 8 came off. Okay. We have a request for 14. Any requests? No? Okay, takes us to 15. That one no, still on consent, 15. Commissioner Carpenter?
Did we get crime stats for that?
Let's see here, let's see.
I can't.
Mr. Clinton, oh, there we are, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Crime stats are pending for 329.
Thank you.
Let's do a brief briefing then, please.
Brief briefing, got you.
Okay, it's pretty low.
All right, brief briefing. This is case Z234-329. It's an application for renewal of existing SUP 2392 for an alcoholic beverage establishment, a bar, lounge, or tavern, and commercial amusement. Sorry, let me just move this out of the way. Commercial amusement inside. It's located in the South Dallas Fair Park Special Purpose District and located on the northeast corner of Botham Jean Boulevard and South Boulevard. So currently it's an existing bar, lounge, and tavern, the Cowboy Lounge. And again, it sits on that corner of that intersection. We'll see that in the on the aerial map. So the applicant is requesting a 5-year time period for their renewal with eligibility for auto renewal of additional 5 years. I'll skip that, but this is just a background showing their renewals over the last 10 years. Excuse me. Here's the location map. Here's the aerial map again, right there. The site is right there on that corner. Zoning map to show the surrounding uses. So it is surrounded by PD 595. To the south, there's industrial manufacturing and warehouse. To the east, more commercial retail uses, another restaurant. I believe there's a U-Haul 2 or 3 doors down. To the east, to the west is undeveloped lots, as well as to the north. Quick site photos. This is on property, looking towards the property. This is on the corner of that intersection. This is looking across to the industrial adjacencies. This is looking up the road here to the southeast. And this is looking the other direction to the northwest. Here's the site plan. No changes to the site plan. There's an enlargement. Again, crime stats pending. We have reached out to DPD. Just waiting for them to get those back to us. The use has been there and existing for about 7 years. They've been in good standing, and staff recommendation is approval.
Questions, commissioners? Okay, thank you very much for the briefing. Takes us to case number, where are we? Is it 16? Okay, 16.
Okay, this is item number 16, case Z234-345. It's an application for a CS Commercial Service District on property zone in R10A, Single Family District, located on the east side of Quietwood Drive between Frontage Road and Kingsland Road. The purpose of the request is to rezone the property to CS for commercial retail uses. It's approximately 36,000 square feet. So currently that lot is undeveloped. There is existing vegetation, and again, it's currently zoned R10A. The applicant is proposing to construct a small storage facility for landscaping company equipment, such as mid-sized trucks and trailers and other machinery. The max height that they are proposing is 20 feet. One case has been in the immediate area within the last 5 years, and again, this is just a general zoning change request. Here's the location map. This is the aerial map showing that undeveloped lot. And the applicant is has the lot to the immediate north. So basically, they are running their business, and then they just want to get this lot properly zoned so that way they can have their storage facility to keep their materials and equipment. Here's the zoning map. To the north is commercial retail with D restrictions. To the east, south, and west are single-family residential uses. Here is a few site visit photos. This is on Quietwood Drive, looking east. Same location looking south. Same location looking west. Same location looking north. Just a quick development standards comparison. So again, the applicant is requesting CS just so that they can do the commercial uses that they're requesting on the site. Brief analysis of the request. So staff did find that the request fits in the existing neighborhood. It is compatible and appropriate with the use that the applicant is intending. There would be residential buffers required due to the residential adjacency. So I know we had some confusion on this last CPC, but because the applicant is looking to do commercial on this property, they would be required to do residential buffers to the east and south of their property. And there is existing vegetation, so the existing vegetation on site would count towards their residential buffer. And the proposed need that is intended by the applicant would technically fall under contractor's maintenance yard, which is allowed by right in CS. So staff recommendation is approval.
Thank you, sir. Questions, Commissioner Franklin?
Yes, and tell me if these questions should be reserved for the applicant. But to the west of that building, I think that road is it Quietwood?
Yes, that's correct.
So that appears to be a very small street. Is it two lanes there?
Yes, it is 2 lanes.
I mean, has there been a traffic study completed to determine what the impact of additional traffic is going to be on that small street, considering there's residents to the south and proposed residential neighborhood to the east?
Good question. So traffic management has not been done to my knowledge, but I do believe the applicant would be willing to, if that's something that commissioners or anybody else will request of him in order to, get this thing done the right way. But to clarify, he's only storing items and equipment there. Well, that's the intent. So there wouldn't be any additional traffic on his end. Like, he wouldn't be creating more traffic, if that makes sense.
But there's a frontage road to the north, and that looks to be the main frontage road that maybe the residents would come into. So there will be traffic coming in from his current business, as well as his proposed new business for whatever. I mean, if it's just storage, that's one thing, but there's still going to be an impact of moving vehicles, or whatever it may be, to that particular area. Are there any other, unless I'm missing it, are there any other exits or entrances beyond what's on Quad Road?
No, just Quietwood Drive.
Okay.
Commissioner Carpenter.
Yes, Mr. Clinton, my concern is about staff recommendation to approve straight CS zoning. I understand that your report and what you're saying is that the owner of the property to the north intends to do certain things, but those intentions are not codified here in any way, shape, or form, either in deed restrictions or a PD. If he's operating on a PD to the north, was there any consideration on extending the PD to this? Because a straight CS zoning does not commit them, excuse me, to do anything. From this point forward, it could be any sort of heavy equipment. It could be cement mixers. It could be, outside gravel front-end loaders. It could be very, very intrusive uses. It's not, CS is not retail, it's commercial services, and they tend to go very heavy equipment and trucking, which the required landscape buffers and the code do not mitigate the effects of that noise and the dust and all that. So could you elaborate a little bit as to why straight zoning was the recommendation here?
Yes, so I can appreciate the concerns. Thank you for that question. I do understand that straight zoning is a concern of yours, and with the uses allowed in a CS, they could be pretty intensive, but this is a first-time operator, so staff wanted to give them the opportunity to start off on a good foot, if you will, instead of limiting them or locking them into certain things like deed restrictions. Another thing is that although deed restrictions are a tool or a method of ours, they're not always absolutely necessary. So again, if the applicant is intending to just do a storage facility, let's take them on their word, allow them to show us that they are, a good operator, give them that opportunity, and go with the straight CS zoning. So, and again, I can understand the concerns with the more intensive uses. Somebody could come in later and do whatever they want to do that's by right, but we're not talking about later, we're talking about the uses that the applicant is intending right now. And all that he is intending is to create a storage facility for his current business so he can store his equipment.
Well, thank you for the explanation, but as you acknowledged, I do have concerns about the long-term implications of CS zoning or these incompatible heavy commercial and industrial zonings next to residential, because no one is going to remember down the road what was said here or what our intentions are, the applicant's intentions, and I don't want to sacrifice the livability of that adjacent neighborhood for intentions that, while maybe good, don't get realized. But thank you.
Isn't that correct? Right. We're doing questions only.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's
Commissioner
fine.
Wheeler.
I understand that the use that is wanting today, but zoning stays with the land. And so what was it? The consideration wasn't here and later, because whatever his use is, if in the CS there's additional uses, and I think that's what Commissioner Carpenter was getting at. Why are we not looking at the totality of that instead of here and now? Because zoning is zoning. This isn't an SUP. This isn't a something that he would have to come back to us. Once he gets the zoning, he can do whatever.
No, that's correct. And, again, I can understand the concerns, but to me and to staff, this is a pretty straightforward case. The applicant just wants to put a storage facility. And I know we've had situations where applicants come in and say one thing and do another. I get that, but we cannot really, I don't want to say it like this, but we can't treat everyone the same if he's not been guilty of doing something other than what he said he was going to do.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions, commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Forsyth.
On that aerial view that you have, the properties to the north of this property along Quietwood Drive, are they part of that PD 619? Are they zoned for commercial?
No, so the properties immediately to the north are not within a PD. Those are straight CR zoned properties.
Okay. So those are businesses.
That's correct. The one, again, the site immediately to the north of the subject site is owned by the applicant who currently operates his business there.
And what will be the buffer, behind this property from the neighbors that are south and east of this?
Yes.
What will be the buffer? How many feet?
So the minimum requirement is a 10-foot buffer, and they would be required to meet the expectations of Article 10. So that means the specific tree species, specific spacing, the size of the trees, all of that would have to be met. So 10 foot is the minimum, so they could do more, but 10 foot wide buffer to the east and to the south of the site are required, and that's, again, the 10 foot is the minimum.
And I'll add in, that's the buffer for landscaping, so that has to be landscaped in a certain way with accordance in Article 10, and then the setback is 20, in case you were saying setback versus buffer, but yeah, the setback is 20 along those borders.
Yes, thank you for that.
Any other questions on this item, commissioners? Commissioner Hampton, please.
Thank you. Mr. Clinton, one follow-up question on the discussion on the property to the north. You mentioned it's owned by the same applicant. In our case report, and it was on page 1617, that's the zoning map, it looks like that lot is R10. Is that correct, or is the grid or the graphic designation incorrect and it should be shown as CS? Yeah, there's a gap. You can see where it's blue and where it's not. And anyway, it looked like it was not CS district.
Yes, so everything within this.
Yeah, that's the
can you
PD
see?
on the right side, or excuse me, left side.
Everything
The
up,
PD where it's got
to
the commercial retail.
Everything
right.
to the north is yes, commercial retail. So everything is straight zone CR to the north, to the immediate
Okay.
north. Mhm.
All right, thank
So
you.
if it
again,
did say R10, it was probably a typo.
It didn't, it was simply blank, and so I couldn't tell, because, and again, the area to the north, I think, has another overlay on it, and that's why the graphic was not clear when I was looking at it. I did want to just make sure that I understood clearly. I understand staff's recommendation and your thoughts on this operator. I think I'm trying to understand that, I think we all understand what we're being asked to consider today, but because the uses are so much more intense in this district, you mentioned deed restrictions, but were those reviewed with the applicant, or those were not reviewed with the applicant as anything they may want to consider?
No, deed restrictions were not reviewed because staff did not find them necessary for this case.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
I had one other question.
Please, Commissioner Forsyth.
Has there been any, what has been the response from the property owners that were on the notification list?
We haven't received any, to my knowledge, we haven't received support or opposition for this.
Okay, commissioners, let's keep moving. Case number 17, off consent, held under advisement to March 6th. We'll brief it then. 18, we're just going to get held to, you have a date? The 20, March 6th is the one after. Let me see here, sorry. March 6th, okay. 18 held to March 6. We'll brief it then. Yes, 18 is March 6. 19 also held under advisement to
The 6th.
March 6. We'll brief it then. 20 came off consent. Do we need it briefed? Yep, that's brief number 20.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is item 20, case Z234-343, an application for termination of deed restrictions Z023-163 and Z812-139 on property zoned in MU3 mixed-use district with deed restrictions, the aforementioned, on the north line of LBJ Freeway east of Coit Road, approximately 4.47 acres in size. Here we see it in the northern section of the city. Here's the aerial map showing the subject site. As you can see, it's an office development that has 2 office buildings and a large parking garage. The area of request and these deed restrictions in particular only apply to the area shown here, not to the other office building, which is on a separate lot. The surrounding zoning, it's a little cluttered on this map, but you can see that there's a fair mix of MU3 and MU1, as well as multifamily districts, some retail and personal service type districts with CR, NOA, LO1. There's multifamily throughout the area, as well as offices, a hotel, and the parking garage. The deed restrictions are proposed to be terminated. They prohibit development of multifamily, and they limit the total floor area. The applicant does wish to develop multifamily, and as such, they're requesting the termination of these 2 deed restrictions. Here's some photos of the subject site. This is on LBJ Freeway looking north and to the northwest, sorry. Looking west, south, then looking northeast. In the foreground is the subject site tower, and then in the background is the other tower that's not part of this request. Looking east to the northeast, northwest, and there's that parking garage. Looking southeast, east-northeast, looking north away from the site towards some of those offices over on the north of the site, then looking southeast towards the site. Our analysis finds that, again, as mentioned, it is a mix of offices, retail, and multifamily. It is served by access to various amenities and services along the LBJ corridor and Coit Road corridor. It is served by a major thoroughfare and the interstate, and multifamily would be appropriate in this area. As such, staff's recommendation is approval.
Great, thank you. A couple quick questions, just confirming the applicant does own the parking garage.
Yes.
Okay. And do you know when notifications went out on this?
I meant to pull that up earlier, but the notifications would have gone out. Oh, that's the wrong one. One moment while my PDF pulls up. Notifications for this meeting would have gone out on the 24th of January.
Okay. And then have you heard any support, opposition on this particular case?
I have received inquiries from the property owner of the adjacent office building. One was just an inquiry about the nature of the request overall. The other appeared to be some concern regarding their agreement to use the parking garage. It is shared between the owner of the subject site and the adjacent site. That being said, that is a sort of a private civil matter and not part of the land use analysis.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Housewright.
I think you just answered my question, Mr. Bate, but the applicant will be responsible for living up to his agreement with the next door office building, and whatever his new development is will have to provide that parking, presumably. But that's just not our concern at the Horseshoe this afternoon.
I would say yes, that is not our concern per se. Whatever agreement does exist between them, it's, again, a private civil matter.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other questions on this one, commissioners? Okay. We'll go to number 21. 21. Okay. Do we need 21 briefed? Anyone need 21 briefed? Okay. Takes us towards 22. Brief it. Let's brief 22.
Good morning, everyone. This is Z223113, and it is located southeast most part of the city, and it's an application for an amendment to specific use permit number 798 for mining of sand and gravel use on property zoned in AA Agricultural District on the southwest line of Claybrook Road between US 175 Frontage Road and Jordan Valley Road. It's 58 acres. So the purpose of this request is to amend the SUP to maintain the status of the site as a detention lake because of the existing SUP conditions that require continual backfilling of the site. Here's the site as it exists today. Here's the zoning map and the SUP extent and the zoning of surrounding zoning. It does have that permanent time period right now. It was originally approved in 1980 without that time limit. Currently used as a detention lake. It was previously used to mine sand and gravel for the adjacent landfill, the Trinity Oaks landfill. They closed their permit to landfill waste in 2002. Under the TCEQ permit 556. Here's a definition of mining for anyone's enjoyment, but it's the extraction, removal, or stockpiling of earth materials, including soil, sand, and gravel, oil, or other materials found in the earth. Then we have some exceptions to that, but it's likely not one of those exceptions. And so I'm just out the gate. It's a atypical case. Assigned a few years ago is why it's taken a while, but in part it's because it's been reviewed by Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability, our DWU team, and floodplain management, code compliance, and paving and draining engineering as part of our public works. So those agencies did not find any objection to allowing the detention area to remain as is. The amendment of the SUP is necessary to maintain the site as it is. Termination of the SUP would require that the site is brought back to a graded state. So we did talk about, hey, could we just terminate the SUP and let it remain as is? Because that's in the conditions, it would be interpreted that they'd have to regrade it back to normal. And existing lake also exists within SUP 799. 799 is its neighbor SUP. So for whatever reason, the lake is split into two SUPs. That is not included at this time because SUP 799 also has a neighboring parcel further down the road that is also part of 799, and that would be under different ownership and would take a little more, I guess you could say, background to get that one processed. I think they wanted to try this one as it is now before they go through that process. So that's why we only have 798 in front of us. So that's enough background, maybe. And we get down to the site. So here it is, down on this Claybrook Road. That's turning the corner on Jordan Valley, looking north across the lake. So across the lake, I think you can kind of see something that exists of the Trinity landfill. And then we look southwest on Jordan Valley. Looking across Jordan Valley. And that's kind of down. You can see the lake on the right. Agricultural uses to the south, residential way further east. And then back north, this is the best shot you can see of the actual SUP from Clayburgh. Can't really see much of it even in winter here. And then look at north at some of the neighborhood further up Clayburgh, but everything is pretty spread out over here. There's the SUP site plan, the original SUP site plan, which is obviously just bearings, and the SUP number and the use and locations versus the street. Updates to the site plan would include the grade as it exists today, and it references the water flow. That was helpful for some of our teams that do this. And I mean, I'll say almost none of this is typical part of a zoning case. This is an atypical case. This is a atypical kind of approval, but we did want to do our due diligence to have the answers to questions and feel comfortable with those partner agencies. So that's the site plan as it exists today. They do have to, you'll see in the conditions, they have to maintain the grade as it is, which means they have to maintain it kind of as a lake as it is. So the only use is sand and gravel. Some of these highlights are actually not necessarily changes to the conditions, but updates to bring it into the modern era of what we do with SUPs. The hours of operation was just moved, and that would be for mining activity. But when we get down to conditions, just to put a little bit more protection on there, they changed some of the language in regards to dust suppression at the suggestion of our paving drainage department. They do have to remove the backfill condition to maintain the site as is. Then, yeah, they move the mining operations, and there, we included a condition just as a safety measure. It's not part of the plan in any means to redevelop the site, but we did add a condition that says if there were to be future development, it has to go through everything hydraulic, hydrologic to undergo. And I would say that's already there, but it's a little bit further justification in case they need to do anything that's within the bounds of the SUP. And then the key condition being if mining operations are not taking place in the property, backfilling of the property is not required as long as the property is in its current condition based on the site plan dated 2025. So we have our site plan with the grade of today. They're required to keep to that, or else they'd have to be backfilling, as part of, if they wanted to do further mining operations, they'd have to go back to the backfilling and not maintain the site plan as of today. So we also have, we added in the typical 6 and 7 conditions because they weren't in the original approval. Consistency review as to the existing plan that's in the area. So they have that West Clayburgh Community Plan. Policy 1.2 is retain the rural character. We do hope it supports that through maintaining the existing, what's become a natural space or reclaimed space, as well as open space. The plan talks about the potential for turning the landfill area into a park. This doesn't accomplish that, no aspersion that it does, but it is part of maybe a step on the way as they to maintain the lake as it is, may open up our opportunities to do that otherwise. So those are 2 things in the plan identified. So based on that, staff's recommendation is approval subject to a amended site plan, and it should be amended conditions.
Thank you, sir. Questions, Commissioner Franklin?
Thank you for that presentation. That's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And this case has implications on the environment and health and safety. And I'm going to ask a few questions to help simplify it for me. So currently, what is being done on the site?
Nothing. Right now, it exists as a lake. It exists as it looks. It's maintained as it is in the aerial for multiple years. The SUP is on top of the ag, so there are ag zoning rights, of course. And then on top of that, there's the SUP that allows the mining, gravel pit. But that SUP was not necessarily fulfilled over the years. And now that they haven't been mining. The applicant could mention, they might be able to answer when they stopped mining, but it's been several years since they've been doing that. So nothing is occurring. It just collects water and acts as drainage and natural space right now.
And what are the future plans for this site?
As the applicant stated, future plan is to maintain it as it is, and this SUP change is necessary to allow it to remain as it is.
Yeah. So what's the issue that we're trying to solve with this SUP?
The SUP calls for it to be backfilled over time. And to get the property right, they have to make sure they're compliant with their SUP conditions. And if their SUP conditions currently say they're supposed to backfill as they mine, add backfill up to grade, that's not occurred in the past. But to get the property right, they have to either fill the whole site with dirt, which our environmental department identify that in itself would have major implications for what's the word I'm looking for, environmental things and stormwater drainage and habitat, or amend the SUP to say you don't have to backfill it and let it stay as it is as a lake. So that's why we have a change in front of us.
And this lake this is for lack of a better word, a man-made lake. This is a lake by happenstance.
It was a hole in the ground, like a quarry or a gravel pit at one point. It's since filled with water, and it appears to be natural when you're out there.
Okay, so there's no guarantee that water will still be there 10 years from now.
It sounds like, and what Stormwater has told us and environmental is it stays filled most of the year because of the size of it. It actually catches drainage for a very large area. Our stormwater says it likely has a positive impact on our drainage downstream, and it collects water there. So most of the year, it appears that it does have water in it because of natural rainfall and drainage from upstream.
The bottom, what are the environmental impacts of the lake bed, the sediment and the soil underneath the lake?
Yeah, no, good question. Likely, it's natural stone and earth down there. Our environmental department didn't have concerns about seeping, anything like that. We know it's next to a landfill. They were, after a long amount of review, confident in the status of the landfill to the side of it, and didn't have seepage concerns or groundwater concerns with the landfill due to the nature of its TCEQ permit. And then on this site, their assessment would it be natural earth and stone underneath, and would not have a negative impact remaining in the way it is.
And thanks for bringing up the landfill. I don't think I quite appreciated that component to it during your presentation. So what is the proximity of the landfill near this lake?
It's the big open space, grassy hill to the west. So they're right next to each other. And long story short, they used to dig sand and gravel from here, drive it up onto the landfill to bury and cover that, which is pretty standard landfill operations. I forgot to add a part of that. We also talked to our solid waste and sanitation department to see if this landfill is, this is not a City of Dallas landfill. It's actually City of Mesquite, managed by a private company. But based on talking with sanitation, just to kind of compare, it's basically maintained in a similar way as they would a city landfill. And then their permit for the landfill was in good standing with the TCEQ, closed out. They can't put more garbage in this landfill because the permit has been closed out for 20 plus years. But they have to keep up. TCEQ landfill permits remain open for several years afterwards in order because part of it is monitoring, a great part of it is monitoring, and that landfill is still under state monitoring and has been in good standing with the state, which gave our environmental department the confidence to say, well, there's likely no issue of them remaining side by side. It's likely capped well. They have liners and things like that in there. So they are right next to each other, but our OEQS, with all that background time of 3 years, has found that there's likely not an impact between those two.
Okay. Now I think I'm better oriented. So we have a landfill over to the west that's owned by Mesquite, and this is a private landfill. Is that a correct statement?
It's Republic Services is a private contractor. They have taken trash for City of Mesquite over, or they did take trash for City of Mesquite for several years. So it's a private entity technically.
Okay. And then we have the SUP area that you are requesting, and then to the southeast, there appears to be a residential neighborhood.
Yeah, and I'd remind that there's two SUPs here. One is 798, one's 799. This is the further north and west one. But Clayburg, we get into, as we go towards the intersection of Jordan Valley and Clayburg, there's a residential neighborhood further east.
Have there been any concerns about flooding in that area?
Not that we had heard, and as I said, they can't necessarily assess flooding without detailed studies on individual properties, but the general assumption is this is assisting in flooding in the area, that it acts just as a detention lake as you would in an individual development site. If you have a detention area, it acts as a gigantic version of that, is the general assumption being made by our stormwater team. So they didn't have objections based on that.
Were the residents, I guess, to the southeast, were they notified about this SUP renewal request?
Right. It's not an SUP renewal, it's an SUP
Forgive
amendment.
me, my language there.
But
This
no
SUP.
worries. I can tell you the distance and the notification area, how far it reached. I don't have that in my slides, but it was in the report.
I do believe there were a few.
Waiting on that internet, yeah. It clipped a couple of the, I guess you'd call them estate-sized property owners to the south. I mean, it was a 500-foot notification due to the size of its area, so 500 property owners within 500 feet were notified. So it clipped, as you can see in near that last page of the report, it clipped 1, 2, 3, 4 property owners on Clayburg Road, which are just homes, and looks like the 3 parcels south of the SUP along that would front Jordan Valley. So they were notified, and that's listed in the docket.
Well, I know there's reason behind the distance for the notification area, but still, with something with these type of implications, that's a real artificial number, since, I mean, this covers 51 acres, the impacts of, or the implications of this SUP will be much broader. It may have additional impacts on the residents below, right?
Well, yeah, the notification distance is based on city code and state code.
Did you receive any feedback from those notifications?
Looks like from the packet yesterday, there was nothing received.
Okay, I'll reserve my questions for the owner.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Houseright.
Mr. Pepe, if I could just venture sort of a paraphrase or a layman's observation about this. I think what staff is saying is that while this body of water is man-made, it's a result of gravel mining, that revoking the SUP and requiring this to be filled in would actually create more environmental risks than just leaving it alone. Is that fair?
Yes, no, absolutely, and that's what our OEQS and DWU arrived at the conclusion they arrived at as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir. Commissioner Hall.
Mr. Pepe, this case number is Z212. How old is this? How long has it been around?
Let me tell you, November 10th, 2021. If I can recall the month, I think this was my second run of assignments of cases as a planner at the city of Dallas. So it's been here for a while. And 99% of that has been spent trying to make sure we have our environmental boxes checked and make sure that we've talked to the right people. This is not a typical process. It's not a typical time frame either. So that's why it's been here for a while, was working with those agencies, trying to get the state to give us feedback on the status of the landfill and those kinds of things. But that's why we're here today after a few years.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's 10:30, commissioners. Let's take a 10-minute break. Two, 5, 6, 7, 8. We do have 8. Are we recording? We are recording. Commissioners, we're on case number 23. Need a brief. Let's brief that.
Okay, we can see it, right?
Thank you. Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry, I don't do this all that often. Okay, so item 3 is Z234277. I thought I could go next. It's an application for a CS commercial service district with deed restrictions volunteered by the applicant and to maintain the areas with a D1 liquor control overlay on properties owned as CR community retail district and CS with the D1 overlay and an R7.5A single-family district. It's on the southeast line of Beltline Road, southwest of CF Hahn, and it's about 4.13 acres. So there are 3 zoning districts within the area of request. The applicant proposes to develop a mini warehouse on the property towards the rear, according to their original application. The volunteer deed restrictions would prohibit all the commercial and business service uses, the industrial uses, lodging uses, most of the wholesale distribution and storage uses, and some additional uses that the CS district could introduce if not prohibited by the volunteer deed restrictions. It's on the southeast side of Dallas here with this star. This is the aerial and zoning map. You can see it's undeveloped and heavily wooded. To the northeast, we have CS. To the southeast, we have multifamily with an MF2 SAH district. Standard Affordable Housing is what that stands for. To the due south, we have an R75. And if you could see that faint gray line, it does project into the area of request. So the striped area here in the middle of the zoning map that has 3 different zoning districts, if you can tell from that picture. There's an MU1 SAH lot to the southwest, and there's a single family on it. But further west is CR zoning, or southwest. Across the street, we have some more single family zoning, and there's some D1 liquor control overlays around and on the site. The area of request is currently undeveloped. They originally applied for a PD so that they can have a 1-story retail development in the front and a mini warehouse in the rear. Since the front of the property, abutting Beltline is already zoned CR, the retail would have been allowed. It was primarily the mini warehouse in the back that needed the zoning change. Since they originally applied, this case has been through 3 different planners, and they have amended the request to ask for straight zoning to CS with the volunteer deed restrictions. Let's see. Yes, I guess they originally wanted a PD because the typical time limit that an SUP would entail. And they, so therefore, instead of a PD, we have base zoning with deed restrictions. Let's see. I'm not going to read all this because I think I've covered it all. Yes, and there's a little strip of land that is already zoned CS, but so far the legal description for this property is for that entire 4.13 acre, and so the deed restrictions and the zoning change would apply to the entire thing. Yes, the only districts that allow a mini warehouse without an SUP are the CS, industrial, and central area districts. Out of those choices, CS would be probably the best choice to not require an SUP, and the mini warehouse is allowed with an SUP in the CR, RR, mixed use, and multiple commercial districts. And this is over my slide. There we go. Just in case y'all would have preferred an SUP, we would have to renotice. So if that's the route the commission wants to take, probably the easiest, most straightforward for the applicant would be a denial without prejudice, and they can reapply if that's the decision. Okay, it's not moving forward. Okay. So just a few pictures. The site's undeveloped with quite a bit of trees. I guess there's a gas station over off of 20, I believe. And there's some more undeveloped properties. And this is the original proposed PD development plan, which is where we came up with the information about the mini warehouse in the back and the retail in the front. But again, this is just for illustrative purposes. There's no site plan proposed in this application. For the development standards table, we have 3 existing zoning districts within the site, but the major change is changing the R75 to CS, and you can see the changes here. And the primary land use changes of the proposal, I didn't go over the ones that would have been allowed by SUP, but office, banks, and medical clinics would be allowed as a change in that R75 area. Again, they were not, residential would not be allowed in, with the change. And an animal shelter without outside runs, a car wash, dry cleaning, general merchandise and food store less than 100,000 square feet, gas station, restaurants, mini warehouse, and sand, gravel, and earth sales and storage would all be allowed with the proposal. There's a more extensive table in the case report on item pages 6 through 10 if we want a little bit more detail. changes? Okay, so staff's recommendation is approval, subject to deed restrictions volunteered by the applicant.
Thank you very much. Questions? Commissioner Franklin?
Thank you for that presentation. Help educate me on what is a mini warehouse? Is that like a personal storage unit?
Yes, that is correct. It's, I think the code defines it as individual rented storage facilities that are less than 500 square feet each. So like your public storage warehouse where you pay a monthly fee for a space and then you store your personal belongings there.
And how does this requested land use compare to the Fort Dallas 2.0?
It was submitted slightly before Forward Dallas 2.0, not 4.0. So we didn't compare it to that. Do you have anything you want to add, Michael?
Yeah, no, it's really pretty easy rule of thumb is if a case has Z234 or an older case like Z223, it's not evaluated under the Forward Dallas framework because we began to implement that after the date of approval of that. So it's not evaluated in that framework. Any case that has Z245 is going to be under the Forward Dallas framework.
But is there any prohibition of evaluating it against Fort Dallas 2.0?
I don't think we would say it would prohibit you from making any decisions that would be in compliance with the comprehensive plan. So I think you can make an argument for that.
Because 2.0 would be more aligned to what people in the area would want compared to Fort Dallas, the original take on it.
You could probably make an argument for that. I did receive a few phone calls on this one. Let's see if I can go to that without making everybody sick. Nope. Okay, we're back at the first one. Okay, let's see if I can find the map. I don't know if y'all can see. Okay, you can. The first phone call I received was from a woman that lives in this area, and she said that there was a lot of homeless that tend to camp out in here, and she had some of them started campfires, and so she was primarily just concerned with unsecured property. And I think I received another phone call from a lady over here last night, and I think she was going to send in a response, but once I explained, that this front part here that was already zoned CR, she was like, oh, okay. She didn't seem overly upset on the phone, but yes, the neighbor that lives here said that there have been some homeless activity and they were in favor of something happening, is what.
Okay, but that'd be more of a issue that area needs to be developed, whatever that may look like, rather than the person isn't opposed to a mini storage unit being there.
Right. Well, she didn't seem to express an opinion one way or the other, residential versus non-residential. She was just concerned about the homeless that was in the area.
And can we go back to the slide where it has the proposed deed restrictions?
Like towards the end? Is that one of the last slides?
No, there was.
The ones left or the ones restricted?
Keep going to
Okay.
on the prior slides.
I think it's one of the, there we go.
This may have gone too far.
No, this
Well, it was a slide that said that it would allow some warehouse, some distribution.
Let's see, maybe it's a summary.
Yes, this one. Most warehouse, distribution, and storage uses and additional uses. That's a little bit ambiguous to me. Okay.
Yeah, I was listening the categories of the uses instead of the individual uses. On the case report, page 6 through 10, it has a more exhaustive list where it list all the uses that would be allowed or prohibited by the deed restrictions.
Okay.
And so that kind of has more granular information on the case report, but it says most because a mini warehouse is a kind of wholesale distribution and storage use. The other uses such as just general warehouse, I believe that is prohibited.
Okay. If it's in the case report.
Yes. And it has, also the case report, it has a table that shows what uses are allowed or requires an SUP in the base zoning districts, R75, CS, and CR, and it has a column that has an X for every use that is proposed to be prohibited. So if it's allowed in CS as a dot or an S, and it has an X, that means they're prohibiting it with your volunteer deed restrictions.
Okay, I remember seeing that table in the case report. It was just a little bit confusing, but now
It's
that I have
long.
context,
Yes.
I'll go back and take a look at that.
Great.
Commissioner Carpenter.
My concern is the recommendation for CS zoning, even with the deed restrictions, because like the case we had a little earlier, the applicant may be saying at this point that they're intending to do a retail strip at the front and a mini warehouse at the back. We don't have, without a PD or an SUP, we don't have a site plan or a development plan that guarantees that. I mean, right now, is it not true that about half the property is zoned, I mean, eliminating the little CS strip, about half the property is currently zoned R? And that wouldn't allow any kind of commercial, most commercial uses, things that we generally consider to be retail.
Yes, that is correct. There is a large portion of the area of request that is currently R75. It's kind of landlocked in there. And the existing zoning abutting Beltline is CR.
Okay.
And yes, we do not have a site plan as a zoning case that is straight zoning with deed restrictions. But because of the extensive list of uses they're prohibiting, it does narrow down their options significantly.
But what it does do with the straight zoning request to CS is it extends all of those commercial retail uses into the portion of the property that never would have had them before. So by right, even with given these deed restrictions, this entire property could be turned into a convenience store with a drive-through, with a car wash, with a gas station, and I believe sand and gravel sales were not even prohibited, so it could be that. So is there not any concern that extending these types of uses that can be intrusive up against a residential neighborhood without the added conditions that deed restrictions or an SUP could provide? Is that?
Well, I mean, the base code does require a residential landscaping buffer for non-residential uses that abut single-family, duplex, townhouse, multifamily districts. And residential proximity slope would limit the height to 26 feet. There's also screening requirements and other things that are baked into the code. So with all those protections that are already baked into the code, we didn't have grave concerns.
Right, but isn't it not the case that in deed restrictions, when we're protecting adjacent residential, we sometimes, often, whatever, require certain types of fencing, you know, heights of masonry fences, or we put hours or locations of where vehicles can go to drive through. So anyway, sometimes. All right, thank you.
The applicant can certainly volunteer additional restrictions if that's their desire.
Thank you.
Thank you. Applicant should be here. Any other questions on this item, commissioners? Okay. Case number 24 has come off consent, will be held under advisement. Don't have a date on that yet. Takes us to case number 25. Assuming no changes or updates on that one. None on 25. Takes us to 26.
It doesn't need to be briefed. It's going to be put under advisement until the 20th.
Okay, we'll brief it then to February 20th. Takes us to 27. I think that we don't need that one briefed. There might be a change of the time period, I believe. 28. Brief that one. Let's brief that one.
All right, item 28 is case Z234-243. It is an application for a new PD subdistrict in PD 193 on property zoned to PD 193 HC Heavy Commercial District. It is bounded by Cedar Springs Road, Maple Avenue, North Pearl Street, and McKinney Avenue, about just under 10 acres in size. Located here in the heart of Uptown and Oaklawn. Here's the aerial map. So as you can see, it is the Crescent development, very storied development. The zoning, it is I think as we often see in this part of town, it's a big mix of various both PD 193 districts and some other PDSs and PDs. Generally, the uses around here, it's a mix of offices, hotel, multifamily, and then also various what I would classify as just retail, personal service type uses. Very characteristic, I think, of just the general mix of uses in this part of town. So it is currently zoned PD 193 HC, and the applicant wishes to build multifamily on the northern portion of the site. Additionally, the applicant wants to codify some various landscaping changes, or not changes, but variances in landscaping that have been granted to the existing site over the years. And as part of the deviations from the PD 193 HC district, they're just incorporating some deviations that will allow their envisioned development to be built out. So they're requesting a new PDS. These are some photos I was able to take actually from a neighboring property that's under construction, probably the coolest site visit I've done. So here we are on Maple Avenue looking southeast at the site, and just more zoomed out. Then went back to the ground looking south on Maple Avenue. It's a lot of photos here, so I'll just kind of take us through, but again, this is the northern tip of the tip of the pie we've been saying, where the new development will be occurring. Here we are looking away from the site, and there's that tower I was just inside of. Then looking to the northeast. So as you can see, there is a good amount of mid to high-rise buildings throughout this area. Looking southwest, and just kind of meandering on down the road here. Then here's the existing development on the Crescent site. Then hop over to the other end. All right. This is the original conceptual plan. They're dividing the area into sub-areas A and B. Sub-area A will be this northern tip that is going to be the new development. Sub-area B is the existing development on there. There are no changes proposed to sub-area B at this time. The development plan, this is a little hard to see, so let's go into the detail. The main portion of this, again, there's this large residential mixed-use building where majority is going to be residential with some requirements for kind of retail or personal service use down at the bottom. There'll be a loading area here. The existing site as it is today, the main thing that's there is a ramp that goes into the parking garage. My understanding is this ramp has been severely underutilized for quite a long time, and that spurred some of the decision to go ahead and develop it with a building instead. Getting more into the detail here, just further in. So you can see here there's some sidewalk improvements that'll be made. There's a proposed drop-off area that is subject to approval by the Director of Public Works. Then the landscape plan. Yep, this is the most updated version. So this is the landscape plan. There's a large amount of trees that are being proposed to line along here, as well as this is a change from what was in the docket, a large specimen tree that will be at the very northern portion, and I'll get to all that in a bit. Subarea B has a landscape plan attached as well. It is incorporating the various variances that have taken place over the years with this site. We wanted to make sure that everything was sort of codified and incorporated in there just to ensure that there's compatibility and continuation of what's been granted so far. The development standards, there's actually not too many deviations here. The big things are that the FAR is 5.1 to 1 rather than 4 to 1, and the max height, it is a limit of 285 feet with an allowance for sub-area A of 415 feet if the mixed income housing development bonus is met. Now, the big change that has occurred since this docket was published is that the applicant has proposed a sustainability scorecard for acquiring their build permit. The scorecard incorporates several design standards that are shown in the conditions in the staff report, and I've highlighted those in the following slides. So the big kind of takeaway here is that a lot of the sort of development, or not development, but design standards and amenities that were previously just in the condition text, a lot of those have been moved over to this scorecard. In addition, there are a few more items that have been included in this scorecard. So going through the proposed conditions, the applicant is proposing that for parking, there's 2,542 parking spaces provided for shared use by any use in the district. The long and short of that is that there's a very large underground parking garage at this site. It's actually, right now, it's kind of overparked. There's a good amount of capacity there. Normally, we would want more of an actual ratio that's used, but in this particular case, since there is existing parking, it's certainly feasible to just have a fixed number. Staff's recommendation is 0 parking requirement, the reason being that it is a very dense and well-served area by transit. And in addition, again, there is already a large amount of parking available on the site with this underground parking. Reducing the parking requirement to 0 would allow for the reuse and reconfiguration of that underground area for other purposes if found feasible. Additionally, the loading, there's area A, it only requires 1 medium-sized loading space that's screened from the right-of-way, 2 off-street passenger loading spaces, and as mentioned previously on the development plan, they do propose 3 on-street passenger loading spaces with approval from the Director of Public Works. Going to the design standards, we have our typical 6-foot sidewalks with a 5-foot planting zone and improved pedestrian crossings across the driveways and curb cuts. Again, just making them more visible, safer for pedestrians. These highlights here, these are some of the things that have moved over into the scorecard. So bike storage space for every 3 dwelling units, micro-mobility charging and parking, a requirement for 1,000 square feet of photovoltaic cells for solar on roofs. It says in the sub-district. So that'll apply for both sub-areas A and B. So that's one thing I forgot to mention is these, the scorecard and these sustainability conditions, they would apply to the whole area. So they would be able to provide some of these improvements throughout the development as opposed to just having it all concentrated in sub-area A. 20% of the roof would be covered with improvements to minimize heat production, such as light-colored roof materials. There's a requirement for a minimum of 30% transparency for street-facing facade up to 30 feet in height, and that blank facades longer than 30 feet are prohibited and require horizontal or vertical articulation. Those 2 are for sub-area A for the new development, not for the existing buildings. A minimum of 5,000 square feet of ground floor reserved for retail personal service uses. That would be for the new building. And that's just to provide, I guess, pedestrian street level activation, really get that whole area buzzing. Additionally, there's proposed conditions. These are some of the newer ones that were added in for the scorecard, requiring urban gardens, apiaries, or beehives, I guess, or beekeeping, butterfly insect conservatories and habitat gardens, a specimen tree, which is shown in the updated landscape plan, and additional tree plantings, reuse of existing parking structure for required off-street parking. So that's a requirement in there that if they utilize some of the existing underground parking, the more that they utilize, it gives them extra points on the scorecard. Our typical 10% open space requirement that we see in most of these MIHDB projects, and also, interestingly, LEED certification. So points are provided for attaining LEED certification from the base level LEED all the way to platinum. Finally, there's the mixed income housing component. The applicant is proposing 5% of the units be available at 81 to 100% of AMFI. Staff does recommend that the income band be put at 61 to 80% of AMFI based on the MVA category of D, just as kind of part of city sort of initiative or policy to try and have a mix of incomes based on the MVA areas. Staff's recommendation is approval, subject to, it's gonna be tough. So subject to the conceptual plan, the development plan, the sub-area A landscape plan as briefed, the sub-area B landscape plan, and staff's recommended conditions as briefed. And with that, I'll open the floor to questions.
Thank you, sir. Questions? Commissioner Hampton.
Just one point of clarification. On the landscape plan for sub-area B, the only change is to add sub-area A. Is that correct?
So on the landscape plan, so to be clear, the way it kind of breaks down is we've got the PDS, the sub-district. It breaks those down into two sub-areas with the conceptual plan. The sub-area B landscape plan, it only is for sub-area B, so it does not incorporate any of the changes that are in sub-area A. There's a separate landscape plan for sub-area B, which is just everything that is on the ground as is today. And then sub-area A, we're on the tip of the pie, that's the new landscaping. Does that answer your question?
Well, I'm going to try one more time.
Yep.
The only change to the plan is to add the designation for sub-area A.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Kingston.
Yeah, and I want to clarify on the scorecard, the applicants can get additional points if they achieve silver, gold, or platinum LEED, because the building code right now gives them the opportunity to choose between base LEED and a different standard. And so that's not part of what is on the scorecard, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, commissioners? Okay, next case is 29. Need that briefed?
May I ask a clarification of
Please.
staff? And we may need to have it brief, but I'll defer to Mr. Pepe. Is it correct that you received some additional conditions from the applicant? And I will apologize for the lateness of those being transmitted to staff.
Yes, we received some after hours last night.
Okay, and have you had a chance to review those?
Not a full review. I pointed out a couple things that I noticed, but I wouldn't consider it a total review.
No, understood. And so, and I know the applicant will be here. Would it be appropriate to have them run through what those changes are?
That would be great if they could.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You don't want it briefed? Okay.
Unless other commissioners have questions.
Any questions or requests for brief on this one, Commissioners? 29. Okay, 30 has been withdrawn by the applicant. We don't need to brief that. How about 31? We need it briefed. Okay. So,
Could you remind me again when the current SUP expired, how long it's been expired? Thank you.
This one has an existing SUP. If we're talking about, yeah, this has an existing SUP number 2107. So that SUP remains in effect right now, and this is a renewal.
It was my understanding that the SUP had expired and the owner had forgot to submit the renewal. But you're saying that it is not expired.
So what they missed was their auto renewal window. So you basically, if you receive auto renewal through your ordinance, you have to apply a little earlier within a very specific window to keep your auto renewal of your SUP going. If you miss that, then you have until the date of the SUP's expiration. So for reference, it's a few months back, you have to submit your auto renewal. They missed their auto renewal window, they did not miss their renewal window.
So, they have not been operating, with an expired SUP.
That's correct, they still have their valid SUP number 2107.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Forsyth. Any other questions on this item, commissioners? Okay, so I believe that is it. Any other questions, outstanding questions before we break for lunch? Okay, it is 11:16, and that concludes the briefing of the Dallas City Plan Commission. We'll see you online at 12:30 sharp. Enjoy lunch.